Is it time to get a new barbecue? Is it time to upgrade your outdoor cooking game? This Black Friday, my friends at Monument Grills have you covered. At Monument Grills, they understand that backyard barbecues and cookouts are more than just food. They're about bringing people together. Gifting a Monument Grill is akin to giving the gift of time. Time spent with loved ones and time saved through streamlined cooking processes. For example, the Denali 605 Pro, which I have, can reach 700 degrees Fahrenheit in just 10 minutes, minimizing the wait for that perfect sear. Plus, it offers real-time food temperature alerts via a mobile app, allowing you to engage with your guests while ensuring your meal is cooked to perfection. On the other hand, the Mesa 415BZ provides versatility, enabling you to saute vegetables and simmer sauces while monitoring your meal through its full clear window. All in the lid, all while you host. With a variety of grills to suit any cooking style, these models make excellent gifts for the holiday season. Perfect for the family host, first-time homeowners, or even treat for yourself. Don't miss our Black Friday promotion starting November 26th, where customers can save up to $155 on purchases at monumentgrills.com. It's time to throw some value and some amazing cooking to your grill game. I'm Eric G. To find out more, head to monumentgrills.com.
It's Around the House.
As we evolve into these fire-resistant landscape designs, one, they can be aesthetically appealing, and there's so many options for folks. I get that it's a lot of work, but I do hope as landscape design companies start offering, maybe even like think about packages that are for wildfire resistant, like they already have some pre-designed sets that you could pick from. But also as we look at the use of mitigation grant money.
Around the House show is brought to you by Pyramid Heating and Cooling. Serving in Oregon, the Portland metro area, and Bend, Oregon, they are your one-stop shop for heating and cooling and indoor air quality. To find out more, head to pyramidheating.com. Oregon CCV 59382.
When it comes to remodeling and renovating your home, there is a lot to know, but we've got you covered. This is Around the House.
Welcome to the Around the House show, the next generation of home improvement. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Eric G. This hour is brought to you by our friends at Monument Grill. If you're looking for a great barbecue under $500, now's a great time to get it for the holidays. Check it out at monument.com. Well, we've got an epic episode today because if you're a homeowner out there, no matter where you're at in the country, this one relates to you. And we've got my buddy Ian here, and this is going to be a lot of fun. He is from the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. Welcome to Around the House, brother.
Yeah, absolutely, Eric. It's good to join you.
This is going to be a lot of fun, and I love what you guys are doing. You guys are testing products, and every company goes out and does their own testing of singular products, but you're putting systems together, you're putting homes together, you're blowing them down, you're burning them up, and you guys are seeing what works and, quite frankly, what doesn't.
Yeah, that's our role at IBHS, is to actually look at how the entire building system, whether it's commercial construction or just our homes, our single family homes or multifamily homes, apartment complexes that are built more commercial like how does that whole system work together, especially when it comes to things like our weather related hazards, whether that's severe weather, hurricanes, tornadoes, could be snowstorms. We're going to talk some winter weather today and other things like wildfires as well. So how does our building system and how those pieces and parts actually interact to give us some of the really bad outcomes we unfortunately see repeatedly, but also what works. And I think that's a big part is how do we get those practical solutions to everybody out there to start really taking a bite out of some of the damage and just really displacement that we see from these kind of things far too often.
Well, it's funny. People go, hey, it doesn't matter if you're on the West Coast or East Coast or in the South and North. We all get windstorms from time to time. And out West here, we get some of those that come in here that are just epic where we'll get hurricane force winds, but building code sure doesn't address it either. So it's one of those things that it's up to the homeowner to deal with because most of the building community is still not doing it. And you'll have people go, oh man, I got this epic roof I put on and I put on the siding. And then I go, how about that attached garage door? What'd you do there? And they go, oh, it's just a really cool little garage door. I'm like, is that rated? And there's so many pieces to this entire system. And that's what's cool about what you guys are doing is you guys go, okay, here's the weak points. And how do we improve that? And hopefully on the West Coast, we'll start dealing with some building code out here that's going to change some of that. So we have more stronger homes and stuff like you guys do that are fortified.
Yeah, West Coast windstorms, while they're not as frequent as, say, we'd see big tropical events on the northern Gulf Coast, we do have them. And I think one thing we've learned is that those events, especially in the western half of the U.S., can expose issues with your roof system, whether you have just an aged asphalt shingle and you didn't have a sealed roof deck underneath, and all of a sudden you have a leak, right? Like windstorm comes along, finally brings us some welcome rain, but all of a sudden we realize, oh, our roof system has had some issues that we didn't know about. And that's one of the things that happens in the western U.S. is they get those big, strong, low pressure systems that move on shore and often do give us the welcome rain, but wind comes with it. And we've learned that it is a place where it will expose issues you may have with your roof system. And often that does manifest itself, unfortunately, in leaks.
Oh, yeah. It's that skylight leaking. It's that valley that you didn't think, and it's just driving that rain way up underneath it. And that 15-pound felt that they used with no ice shield on that roof just doesn't have a chance.
Yeah, that's right. Like if you're just looking at a typical underlayment without a sealed deck, that water is going to come in when the shingles fail. Like it's just a given. It's almost a certainty. And that's one of the big things that we advocate in terms of code development is to try to get that sealed roof deck in across the whole United States. It can work in all sorts of places, whether we're talking about the West Coast and their windstorms. We got the central U.S. that deals with thunderstorm wind events and obviously heavy rain and hail that come with that. And then everybody is finally realized on the hurricane coast, like, hey, this can like lop off a lot of that interior water damage that comes through your roof when your shingles fail. And we have made a heck of a lot of progress over there and getting things like that into code, whereas we still got some catch up to do in the rest of the country.
That's amazing. We just put a roof on my brother's beach house that we were working on out in Cannon Beach in Oregon here, and it's a block off the water. It's got some good protection, but they still, this time of year in the fall and the winter, they routinely have every other week, they'll have 70, 80 mile an hour winds out there, and it just happens. And so we put a new roof on it out there, and we basically put ice and water shield on the entire roof surface up there just to make sure that we can control that water underneath it. And if we did lose shingles, we have half a chance of not having massive water damage. Now, if we would have been resheathing it, I probably would have looked at something like going on with a system like Huber or one of those other guys out there. I think GP has one too, but there's more systems like that coming out, which just gives you that durability if something bad happens.
Yeah, the Huber Zip system is probably the one that people recognize the most from a branding system. Mm-hmm. But again, it's got the built-in tape seams. We did something similar here in my house. We built it. We did the ice and water shield as a peel and stick membrane across the whole thing. And our builder said, hey, we just started doing this because it's just easier to do anyway. And that gives us that sealed deck protection. But yeah, you talk about out on the West Coast, it doesn't take, especially with an aged asphalt roof, 50, 60 mile an hour winds, and you're going to start peeling up unsealed shingles. And that unfortunate cascade can start. So all the things we've learned in other high wind areas can actually apply in a whole lot, really across the entire United States. We just got to start talking about it and telling folks, hey, this is a path. This is one of the most economical roof things you can do. And when you look at the damage that comes when water comes in through a roof, really water that comes from anywhere in our house, you're anywhere between like 4 to 10 times what just the cost of replacing your roof would have been. And in the worst case, you might even be out of your home for a couple of months while you're having to cut out drywall and almost start over on a lot of the interior.
I have seen some water damage get people out of a home for 6 months just because of the amount of work that had to be done inside. And anytime you can do something like that to prevent it, and quite frankly, if you have a discussion with your insurance provider as well, if you've done some of those steps, they might give you a little bit of a break on, oh, okay, you got any paperwork on that? Maybe you're at a lower risk than the house next door.
Yeah, that's right. Like in a lot of places, the insurance discounts continue to grow. And in some cases, some carriers will even provide what's called an endorsement. Well, they'll actually help cover the cost of those upgrades to your roof system. So that's something when you do those steps, absolutely talk to your insurance agent and document it, right? We always tell folks go through our Fortified roof program. That's a great way to ensure that's all done. But some of these elements you can do yourself. My parents did that in Baton Rouge. And again, document, talk to your agent, because in a lot of places, these things will get you a discount on your homeowner's policy.
Yeah, especially these days with the storms that are going in there. Anytime they can see that you're doing prevention, you've got their attention. And And some places like California, where there's plenty of companies down there that when you go to change your policy, they go, oh, and by the way, we just canceled your policy since you're changing it.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have an insurance crisis that's been developing in the West. A lot of it's wildfire, that threat's driven. We're starting to, science is caught up as to what we can do about that. But from the social science perspective, a lot of times when we start making these updates to our home, we just keep going, right? Like when we start them, you feel really good about it. And it often leads you down the road to doing a lot more. And then you end up in a place where I think about some of our Alabama Fortified homeowners that were actually having neighbors who had their homes damaged come stay with them while their homes were being repaired. And you think about that, like you're not only helping your neighbors, you are still in your home with a place to sleep, not having to go spend months in a hotel. I could start to imagine that with my two giant, really big foxhounds and my 7-year-old in a hotel.
That's a nightmare.
Ooh,
that's a nightmare. Imagine. I don't want to do that. There's no way I want to do that.
No.
Not a chance.
So,
Not a chance. It's crazy.
It's why you talk to people who go through this. They don't want to do it again. So their whole perception has changed. But we want to get to the place where you don't have to go through one of these really bad events to take some of these steps. So
Round the House will be right back with the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety after these important messages. We're just getting started. Welcome back to the Around the House Show, the next generation of home improvement. Thanks for joining me today. This hour is, of course, brought to you by our friends over at Monument Grill. December 5th is the last day of their Black Friday sale, so go out and grab that new barbecue for your loved one or just a great gift to yourself. Find out more at monumentgrills.com. Now, let's get back to our conversation with Ian from the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. Let's talk about how to keep your house fortified and making it through the next storm. Yeah, absolutely. My roof system here it's probably a 20-year roof. It was on it when I bought the house, and I knew what it was when I got it. So insurance company was like, that's not in its best shape. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm going to do some stuff around here first, and then I'm going to put a roof on it. And I've been talking to you guys for years, and it's like, all right, I think next year is going to be a fortified roof on my place because I just want to have it done right. And being a West Coast guy with wildfires and windstorms, anything I can do with that wind to help keep things shipshape and looking good, I'm happy.
Yeah, my parents did the same thing. Magically, they got almost 25 years plus out of their roof in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which made it through a couple of hurricanes too, which is remarkable, to be honest, knowing all the data behind a lot of roof damage. But they did the exact same thing. They had saved knowing they're going to have a replacement coming. Went to one of the Malarkey shingle products, one of the polymer modified asphalt shingles. My dad walked the roofer through the sealed deck process. And yeah, he was really, and my mom, it's funny, my parents are in their late 70s. My mom is a PhD in music. She was a band director forever. But she's
PhD in music, so I get that.
Yeah, she's talking about how good their roof is. And I'm sitting there like, wow, okay, you clearly have taken some pride in the new roof, Mom. But kudos to my folks. They took all the guidance we have at IBHS. We put a lot of that into our home here, and it can work. And for them, it was actually affordable. Like it didn't really change much of the cost from what they would have. They just had to shop it around a couple different contractors.
I now need to come up with a product to stop these 130 to year old fir trees that are 100 feet tall to protect my home, because that's going to become the next one. Because I tell you what, there's a house, we had an ice storm with wind here last January, February here in the Pacific Northwest, hit us. We had like an inch of ice, and then we had the heavy winds on top of it, and a house 2 blocks away. This happened in February. They just moved back in 2 weeks ago, and it got hit with trees coming, newer build. Everything was held up. It was framed correctly. It had all the Simpson or Brand X ties that were holding everything together. And when one big tree came down, caught the eaves of the roof, it lifted the roof system up, trusses and everything, and put it back down askew, because it just, when you drop 5,000 pounds of tree onto 2x4s, there's mass is going to win on that.
Yeah, we look at what just happened this year with Hurricane Helene when it moved inland. The biggest issue really came down to trees. And in the southeast U.S., we're tons of pines. We love our big oaks, and they come down. Like we talk about, trees are good until they're not. And there is a place where you can use dense tree canopies as an advantage to actually as a windbreak, right? We know that from centuries ago. But in the instance where they are so close to your home, they can be detrimental too. And we saw that with Helene, where the inland impacts because of this, not just we had catastrophic flooding, we had clearly well enough wind to knock down trees. And that became the story rather than the immediate coastal impacts, which occurred in an area of Florida, which it's one of the few places where very few people live.
Yeah. And that's crazy. Like here, it's not even like that root ball tipping up that you see where it was a root issue. I saw stuff that broke off 2 feet above ground, and it took a 36 wide tree, snapped it off at the base and dropped over. And it's like, there's no preventing that. And the other problem is all these trees are protected. And so even if you've got something that an arborist says, hey, probably should take that down because it's not healthy, there are hoops and permits and inspections and all this stuff you have to get through. And unfortunately, I love protecting trees, but at the same point, a lot of homeowners struggle because they're like, wow, okay, that's going to be $12,000 to take that tree down by the time we get through the arborist reports and the permits and everything else. And now a lot of homes still have trees around them, but with today's economy, they can't afford to take that down. And the insurance companies at the same point aren't really interested in that level of prevention sometimes. So it's tough.
Yeah, there's where I think when we get down to that kind of granular stuff, you're going to see the carriers. That's just a level of detail that I don't think right now insurers are going to really focus on. They can log information on our structures more readily. Yeah. It may change, who knows, as technology and machine vision gets better. But I think you hit a good point. Like we're in a place where we have to look at this from a balance. What is the true balancing act? We can't tip the scale one way all the way to the other, either way. But we have to look hard at it, especially as we're dealing with more and more of these events. And we also know we need houses. We have to build. We have a housing crisis in the United States. And so we need to do this with all this stuff in mind and find that nice balance in the middle. But yeah, this year was one of those where you guys deal with the big windstorms on the West Coast. Conifers are just going to snap. We see that in pines in the Southeast U.S. And then, of course, we have the wonderful live oaks that just the entire whole thing just tips over. And
exactly.
There's no roof system that's going to withstand that.
No.
And it's to be honest, it's probably a bridge too far from an economics of building. We just got to start thinking about how do we do this? How do we use vegetation across the board as some of the benefits that you get from it, but also keeping that in mind that, hey, we don't want to introduce a vulnerability as we plant a tree, not realizing it's going to end up 40 feet tall and 6 feet in diameter right up against our home. Yeah,
so very true. And it's funny, as I've been remodeling my place, I took out a closet and I moved it and put the master bedroom bed up against that. If I could dream. Are you a small business owner? Has business slowed down? How is your website? Does it look like it's seen better days and those are behind it? It's time you fix it with SciPipe Designs. My friend Johnny that you've heard on this show each week, that's him playing in the background, is my go-to web designer that understands how to get your website and web traffic where it needs to be, and that's making you money. If you want personalized service at a much lower price than those big companies out there, check him out at sitehypedesigns.com. If you want a rockstar website to turn your business around, you gotta hire the rockstar. Just wait till you see my website coming soon. It's absolutely amazing. Contact Johnny at sitehypedesigns.com before it costs you even more money. Let's get that business turned around. Is it time to get a new barbecue? Is it time to upgrade your outdoor cooking game? This Black Friday, my friends at Monty McGrills have you covered. At Monty McGrills, they understand that backyard barbecues and cookouts are more than just food. They're about bringing people together. Gifting a Monty McGrill is akin to giving the gift of time. Time spent with loved ones and time saved through streamlined cooking processes. For example, the Denali 605 Pro, which I have, can reach 700 degrees Fahrenheit in just 10 minutes, minimizing the wait for that perfect sear. Plus, it offers real-time food temperature alerts via a mobile app, allowing you to engage with your guests while ensuring your meal is cooked to perfection. On the other hand, the Mesa 415BZ provides versatility, enabling you to saute vegetables and simmer sauces while monitoring your meal through its full clear window. All in the lid, all while you host. With a variety of grills to suit any cooking style, these models make excellent gifts for the holiday season. Perfect for the family host, first-time homeowners, or even treat for yourself. Don't miss our Black Friday promotion starting November 26th, where customers can save up to $155 on purchases at monumentgrills.com. It's time to throw some value and some amazing cooking to your grill game. I'm Eric G. To find out more, head to monumentgrills.com. And when I framed out the soffit for the lights I put up there, my wife was like, "Why are you putting a beam up there?" And I'm like, "Well, that's a roll cage up there for us, just in case I built it 10 times stronger than what it needed to be." I didn't need a header up there, but I headed across the entire room up there just to give myself a little more protection in case we had something come down.
Yeah, that's actually really smart to think even to that level of detail. And I actually had a friend of mine who works for the National Weather Service in Slidell do exactly the same thing. Was really even thought about the trees on their property. My parents, they have a huge pine. They're still in the house I grew up in. And they'll, during hurricanes, go sleep in another bedroom because a certain wind direction, this massive pine, it's going to come down right on top of where their bedroom was. And that's something I would encourage folks to think about stuff like that.
Yeah, we look at it here as well. Like this, we had that bomb cyclone coming into us here last week or so and taking a peek at that. And I'm like, okay, that's coming from the east and the winds. So that grove of trees on the property is at risk. The ones in the back aren't coming my way. But then I'm like, okay, but that's the younger, weaker ones compared to the 350-year-old one that's in the back that's made it through everything it's had thrown at it. That's a healthy tree. So you have to weigh those risks. And there's times that I go, let's go sleep on the living room couch. It's safer down there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something we have to think about occasionally, especially when we deal with frequent windstorms or even think about ice storms too. You can have the exact same thing happen in a winter weather event for sure.
Yep. It was interesting. I learned a lot about this as a kid. I was 19 years old, living in an apartment. We had one of those big windstorms when I was growing up in Eastern Washington, way away from the coast. And it took the trusses off a lot of the apartment complex because it was built in the 60s. So it didn't have any of the ties in there, right? And when I was sitting in my second floor apartment and I watched this shear crack go diagonally from the top down across a 20-foot wall in the living room, dining room into the kitchen, and I'm watching the drywall snap and break at a diagonal, I was like, don't change that dial around the house. We'll be right back with more from the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. Let's make sure your house will make it through the next one. We'll be right back.
Let's on that fan that keeps us breathing.
Is it time to get a new barbecue? Is it time to upgrade your outdoor cooking game? This Black Friday, my friends at Monument Grills have you covered. At Monument Grills, they understand that backyard barbecues and cookouts are more than just food. They're about bringing people together. Gifting a Monument Grill is akin to giving the gift of time. Time spent with loved ones and time saved through streamlined cooking processes. For example, the Denali 605 Pro, which I have, can reach 700 degrees Fahrenheit in just 10 minutes, minimizing the wait for that perfect sear. Plus, it offers real-time food temperature alerts via a mobile app, allowing you to engage with your guests while ensuring your meal is cooked to perfection. On the other hand, the Mesa 415BZ provides versatility, enabling you to saute vegetables and simmer sauces while monitoring your meal through its full clear window. All in the lid, all while you host. With a variety of grills to suit any cooking style, these models make excellent gifts for the holiday season. Perfect for the family host, first-time homeowners, or even treat for yourself. Don't miss our Black Friday promotion starting November 26th, where customers can save up to $155 on purchases at monumentgrills.com. It's time to throw some value and some amazing cooking to your grill game. I'm Eric G. To find out more, head to monumentgrills.com. Hey guys, it's Eric G, and I have a special offer for you. Do you want to get the podcast a couple days early? How about extended content that isn't in the typical podcast? Maybe you want to check out all the back episodes of the show. And I got a special deal for the first 10 days are free. I want to personally invite you to be an Around the House insider. For about $4 a month, you can get exclusive extended episodes, early access to the weekend show, and exclusive access to me, Eric G., for project questions or comments. Check on the link on your podcast player in the show notes or head to aroundthehouseonline.com and look for the join here button. Make sure and sign up today. As always, thanks for tuning in to Around the House. Welcome back to the Around the House show, the next generation of home improvement. This hour is brought to you by our friends at Monument Grill. For that gift for the holiday season, check them out at monumentgrills.com. Now, let's return back to our conversation with the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. These guys do all the great tests on materials to make sure your house will make it through the next windstorm, hurricane, tornado, or firestorm. Let's get back to our conversation with Ian. And I watched this shear crack go diagonally from the top down across a 20-foot wall in the living room, dining room into the kitchen. And I'm watching the drywall snap and break at a diagonal. I was like, okay, we're getting ourselves in trouble here. This building could come down when we see that breaking on the inside. And it didn't, but it really brought me to that thing of like, oh, we need to build better for that, because I witnessed it as a teenager. And it was crazy to see. There was, after the windstorm, I walked out in the parking lot and there was 18 inches of roof shingles and plywood on the parking lot of the apartment complex, and metal siding, it peeled it right off. And it's just fascinating to see how much damage just a little wind can do.
Yeah, it is. And it's a cascade that starts too. Once it begins, you start whittling away at the different aspects. And wind, like any other hazard, it's looking for that weak point. And you hit something. If we look at sort of the eras of construction, we go back to like really the 60s, 70s, 80s. We started to fix this in the 90s with improved codification. But that's the thing I'm looking for. Say we're doing a hurricane damage survey. You're going to see far more like gable in-wall failures in that era of construction, just point blank, because just how we did it. And we didn't have the proper sort of codification standard to account for the loads we needed to at the time. So I always tell folks, if you have those homes in that era, that 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe the early 90s, you're the perfect candidate for any of these roof retrofits, the Fortified roof program that we talk about. That's for you. And it's a great time if you're re-roofing to go ahead and do something to strengthen that. Say you have a home built under the modern codes. You're going to have an awful lot of protection already built in, especially if you're in some of the coastal areas. You mentioned the West Coast. We still we had some work on the design level and just some of those loss prevention factors that have made it in the way into the hurricane-prone coast codes. But a lot of that, we look at, it was Hurricane Ian. We looked at about 450 some odd homes built under that modern Florida building code. So 2002 to present day, not a single one had structural damage.
Yeah.
We've almost eliminated that because we've taken all this knowledge and put it into practice. So can we do that elsewhere? I think that's the message.
I tell you what, when I first met you guys, it was probably 5 years ago or so, somewhere in that time. I was out as the host at the Southeastern Building Conference on the demo stage. And I was the host of that stage and was helping with all these different things. And I know a lot about building construction, but looking at what coastal states over there have to do to meet current code back then, I'm like, this was so foreign to me when we first started having conversations. I'm like, you're tying the top plate into the concrete with cables coming up and wow. Well, okay. It was a whole new world from a West Coast guy. And I know the rest of the country that doesn't live or build down there would be doing the same thing, going, wow, okay, that's a whole new level of construction that I think would make a difference whether you're in an earthquake or if you're in a hurricane or a tornado or anything else. How many times do we see, and I love old houses, I have no disrespect to them, and a lot of people will go, hey, they sure don't build them like they used to, and it shows the house out in the middle of the street from when the tornado or hurricane came through, and I'm like, yeah, that house wasn't attached to the foundation, so it's out in the street, and the one that was built 20 years ago is still sitting there. There weren't engineers back in the 20s building these houses and signing off on plans.
Yeah, and we could the load path from a tornado perspective has become like it's the most critical aspect. And I think about when the city of Moore in Oklahoma put in their building code following like their fourth violent tornado in 2 decades, there was the same sort of response, like, hey, what is this? Like, what do we do? And then if you go look at a couple of the tornadoes that Hurricane Milton caused, we had one of these modern Florida homes where the tornado deposited a construction dumpster on the roof system, and it was structurally okay. Like there was obviously some damage, but you have a home to come back to after a tornado dropped a dumpster on top of your house.
That was not a small dumpster, by the way.
No, it was huge.
That was not a little convenience store dumpster. No. That was something out in front of a job site.
Yeah, you could imagine that could have been a vehicle.
Easily.
It was a kind of a very interesting proof point to that. But you saw how these things can perform if we just translate that knowledge over to some of the other hazards. And you mentioned seismic. That's one of the more successful retrofit programs too, especially in the state of California, some of the seismic retrofits. But if you rewind the clock like way, way back, and I was noticing this, was at the Smithsonian, the Museum of American History, and they have an early colonial house that's actually reassembled inside the museum. And I'm looking at, of course, all the connections, right? Like, sure. 13 years ago when I started IBHS, I wouldn't go stare at this stuff readily.
No, now you're geeking out.
But the way with the type of connections back then, you created a natural load path. But as we progressed all the way to when mass production of homes started, we got away from a lot of that because some of it's highly skilled carpentry kind of work.
Sure.
And I wouldn't even attempt to do that. But now we've caught up with modern techniques that do save on the labor and that kind of thing to be able to accomplish the exact same thing like we were doing a century plus, and more than that now these days, ago. But it's just these factors that can actually keep a structure together that, to be honest, if we put them together, like the doom and gloom, they don't cost that much in the grand scheme. But we've hit it. Like there's some retrofits that we have, and we have to, folks in that era of construction, you are the candidates you can make a big difference with just when you re-roof going to something like the Fortified system. You get a good shot to do something really good to your home.
Oh yeah, my house was built in 1977. It's a perfect candidate. And I am happy though, and when I got into it and looking around, I'm like, oh, cool. Trusses are clipped down to the top plate. I'm like, somebody went the extra mile at the time.
Yeah, I was surprised when we bought our house in South Carolina, our first one, and we saw one, they actually did the truss to wall connection clips, missed one. Of course, my wife, who's also an engineer, calls the builder. We weren't the first owner either, but we were able to actually get the original builder to come out and deal with it. But the typical homeowner may not know what they're looking for in that inspection. But so as we improve codes, bringing that side of the inspection process along is just as important.
Yeah, no question. What are you seeing? I'm out on the West Coast here, and now we're seeing this in the Northeast now too with wildfires. But I know you guys have been really diving in head deep into wildfire situations where I know you were working on the local stuff even, which was the hurricane stuff, but wildfire's a whole other different beast.
It is. And IBHS's wildfire research program goes back really to when our research center opened in 2010. But really, it was the fires in the West of 2017, 2018 that turned it into, the focus got put on it from an insurance and loss perspective, because for the very first time, you started having wildfires that moved into our suburbs, right? That created loss events that are on par with hurricanes. Yeah. And of course, when we're looking at how we manage risk across the United States, that's going to make anybody who's insuring that risk step up and look at it like, whoa, what have we done? And you realize some of it dates back to our policies of wildfire suppression. So we weren't telling folks that this really was a threat. We started building our typical suburban neighborhoods into these wildlands that already had fire as part of their ecosystems. Like fire was meant to be there. Yeah. Vegetation had evolved to use fire for benefit. And now we've built neighborhoods where we put houses that have very little exterior fire resistance to them. And then we connect them with fuels, whether that's plants, whether that's our wood fences. I was doing some work even this morning looking at the Marshall Fire in Colorado, and you had one of the neighborhoods, like 96% of homes were actually physically connected by wooden privacy fences because we like them, but it was the dominant source of fire to each home. In fact, each of these homes, from a defensible space perspective, was actually pretty good. They didn't have a lot of vegetation that connected them. But guess what? Fire found that path through the fence. And so we're looking at what are the ways, one, we can do better on the exterior. Two, how do we landscape to reduce that fire pathway of fire going structure to structure? Because right now, there's places where if you just put fire into a neighborhood under those wind conditions like you guys just dealt with and put in a drought, and that's going to be a catastrophe. That outcome is almost certain. So how do we stop that? And that's been the focus of our work, just looking at.
Don't change that dial. Around the House. We'll be right back with more from the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. Let's make sure your house will make it through the next one. We'll be right back. Hey guys, it's Eric G, and I have a special offer for you. Do you want to get the podcast a couple days early? How about extended content that isn't in the typical podcast? Maybe you want to check out all the back episodes of the show. And I got a special deal for the first 10 days are free. I want to personally invite you to be an Around the House insider. For about $4 a month, you can get exclusive extended episodes, early access to the weekend show, and exclusive access to me, Eric G, for project questions or comments. Check on the link on your podcast player in the show notes or head to aroundthehouseonline.com and look for the join here button. Make sure and sign up today. As always, thanks for tuning in to Around the House. Is it time to get a new barbecue? Is it time to upgrade your outdoor cooking game? This Black Friday, my friends at Monument Grills have you covered. At Monument Grills, they understand that backyard barbecues and cookouts are more than just food. They're about bringing people together. Gifting a Monument Grill is akin to giving the gift of time. Time spent with loved ones and time saved through streamlined cooking processes. For example, the Denali 605 Pro, which I have, can reach 700 degrees Fahrenheit in just 10 minutes, minimizing the wait for that perfect sear. Plus, it offers real-time food temperature alerts via a mobile app, allowing you to engage with your guests while ensuring your meal is cooked to perfection. On the other hand, the Mesa 415BZ provides versatility, enabling you to saute vegetables and simmer sauces while monitoring your meal through its full clear window. All in the lid, all while you host. With a variety of grills to suit any cooking style, these models make excellent gifts for the holiday season. Perfect for the family host, first-time homeowners, or even treat for yourself. Don't miss our Black Friday promotion starting November 26th, where customers can save up to $155 on purchases at monumentgrills.com. It's time to throw some value and some amazing cooking to your grill game. I'm Eric G. To find out more, head to monumentgrills.com. Welcome back to the Around the House Show, the next generation of home improvement. This hour is brought to you by our friends at Monument Grill. For that gift for the holiday season, check them out at monumentgrills.com. Now, let's return back to our conversation with the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. These guys do all the great tests on materials to make sure your house will make it through the next windstorm, hurricane, tornado, or firestorm. Let's get back to our conversation with Ian.
And we've, over a century, think about how we've built the cities of the United States over a century. This was a problem in the making that I hesitate to say we didn't stick our head in the sand. We forgot about it. We just forgot and thought we had solved it. We've done so much work on urban fires, and our building codes have done so well on interior fire. We just forgot. Yep. And then now throw in a little bit of the climate element too, and this happens. And unfortunately, we humans start most wildfires these days. There's more people. We've spread out, and you now have these fires that really want to propagate through those ecosystems, but they're closer to our communities. And then throw in the volatile conditions, and this is what you get. So we got some work to do for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, we're going to run out of time pretty soon. I know we got to watch out for that, but I wanted to talk more about Fortified Home a little bit here and really get a bow around that for the people out there, because we were teasing about it earlier, talking about wanting to do it, but let's give people a little bit more information on that, because I think it's such a great thing that you guys are doing. You guys have such an amazing testing facility where you're really just testing out materials. And I got to get down there one of these days and check it out, because anytime I can watch you guys build homes up in a wind tunnel and try to blow them down, I'm interested, if you know what I mean.
Oh, there's definitely a cool factor, and there's always like 5 months of work for like 5 minutes. Oh my goodness.
Yep.
That was crazy. But yeah, so our Fortified program is, and I'll give a shout out to our wildfire prepared home program, which is, these are what we call our designation programs. They're building standards that go above the building code, and are designed for resilience. For Fortified is around windstorms, and then also wind and hail. Fortified has 3 different levels you could build to. And the first one is roof, which is the best option if you are re-roofing and you want to make your roof better and stronger for the next storm. Fortified roof is the deal, and it's got its system of protections. The cornerstone is the sealed roof deck, making sure that the deck seams are sealed, as we talked about earlier, that wind-driven rain can't get through there and amplify all that interior water damage. The next piece is adding ring shank nails to the decking, so you're going to improve the uplift resistance of your deck. That's something we've known for several decades in wind engineering. And then lastly, there's some details around how the edge shingles are sealed down that is the peak area of uplift. So shingles don't age that well from a wind resistance perspective, but this is the one spot where we try to mitigate some of that at the edges where there's the highest uplift. So that's roof. Then we move on to silver, which is the middle ground, where you add opening protection around windows, garages, chimney, reinforced chimney connections, things like that. But really the gold, and I say gold because it is called Fortified Gold, it is the gold standard, is the biggest for a new build. And it's the full, you get the components of fortified roof, impact resistant windows, wind rated garage door, and the full load path. We tie the roof to walls, wall to foundation, and it is the gold standard for construction. And I mentioned earlier, the Florida Building Code, in about a third of the state, the code now mimics Fortified Gold. It's come up so much that awesome. Some places where you're building, you are basically getting the protections of a Fortified Gold home. It's one of the biggest windstorm resilient success stories in the United States. So that's taking decades of wind engineering science, putting it into a standard, and turning it loose. So we've eclipsed, I could actually pull that up. We are in 50,000 plus designations these days. Wow. And it's growing rapidly. Coastal Alabama started all this momentum. They've even put Fortified into their codes themselves in a lot of those jurisdictions. Louisiana's coming up. North Carolina's a second. So they're hot on the heels of Alabama. Nice. Louisiana started their grant program this year. And I will tell you, in most states these days, there are insurance incentives tied to Fortified if you have that roof designation or a gold or silver designation. So check out fortifiedhome.org. And we're doing the same thing for wildfire. The program is called Wildfire Prepared Home. Same thing, set of code enhanced protections that are meant for mitigation. The Wildfire Prepared program just has 2 levels. It's what we call our base level, which is really about protecting against ember attack. And then we go to plus, which brings in not only ember attack, but we talked about it, the flames, radiant heat, building the more hardened structural materials to give you a more comprehensive set of protections. So those are the designation programs of trying to bring science, put it into a practical standard that can be executed on. And Fortified's been an amazing ride. It started slow, but now we are definitely cranking away.
That is awesome. Yeah. And you guys are just really changing it. And what I think is cool is that there's always been a pushback from some of the building community out there of, well, we're trying to make houses more affordable. And at the same point, you're going, how are we making houses more affordable if we're having to replace them in these areas so soon? And the insurance companies, who are a business themselves, have to be able to be profitable so they can stay in business and not be like in California where they're dropping everybody's plans down there because they literally are going to go out of business if they stay there. So we got to find that happy medium. And you guys are just doing such great work of finding where that is and the things that we can do as part of now standard building practices. Yeah. And I think the more we do of elevating the rest of the community, because quite frankly, building code is the minimum out there. And if we can get that minimum a little higher to make these things be able to withstand more, everyone wins.
Yeah, I think you hit it absolutely. Fortified really is. It's such a great model for success. And it is that middle ground, right? If you look at the amount of material we're unfortunately replacing over and over again with damage, like those dollars have just got out of control. And if we look at our system in the United States, this isn't sustainable. And if you look at the spectrum in the insurance industry, the carriers that are going to feel this first and already are a lot of the smaller regional carriers that don't have giant footprints like the big names we see on Super Bowl commercials.
Yeah.
But they're having to manage this. And the loss part has become unsustainable because we just have to replace so much material these days. We can do better. We're figuring out how. Fortified's been a place where we've shown what that middle ground actually looks like, where you got a great retrofit option that doesn't cost a whole lot more. And you also got a great option for new construction that really does deliver. It was remarkable. We looked at some of the Hurricane Sally loss data with the Alabama Department of Insurance and University of Alabama. Yeah. Fortified homes that, you can have damage. It happens, right? But you look at existing, your non-fortified construction, it's that big old fat exponential growth and damage ratios. And there's fortified just humming along the bottom. Yeah, you get a little damage here and there, but not into that big old fat curve that takes off skyrocketing as the event severity gets worse. And you sit there and look at it, I was like, man, that's the story right there.
Yeah, we see it on the news. You see the hurricane footage of the helicopter or the drone going by, and you're like, how come those 4 houses are 3 blocks back in piles of rubble, and this house here has some damage to the siding?
Yeah, we can't stop all damage, but man, we can do a heck of a lot to take a chunk out of it. And also, at the end of the day, you're going to have families that do have a home to come back to. And when we do it in mass, you will have communities that stay intact rather than places that have been so decimated that people just have to sell their homes because they can't the financial burden is too much. Yeah. Even if you had insurance, you may not be able to handle the financial burden of what that means. And I think when we do this in mass, that's what changes. We keep those communities intact. Whereas today, far too often, we see them come apart for those reasons.
Well, and then it just exponentially grows because if the first row of houses comes apart, now that debris hits the second run of houses, and it's just like an avalanche, right? I mean, you've now got what was tree debris or anything like that was from Mother Nature. Now you've got exponentially more going causing more damage. So the more we can do to do that.
We talked about wildfire, right? It's the ultimate example. Yeah. We can do a lot on our parcel, our lots to help reduce that risk. But when we tag team 100 of them, we actually can stop an entire catastrophe from unfolding. And so that's the message too. Fire across all these perils has that dependency the most. And when you do it all together, we can't stop the tornadoes and hurricanes because in reality, our buildings don't contribute to what they are. But fire's different, right? Yeah. Our houses are a fuel. So that's no question. We can absolutely stop a catastrophe from unfolding. It's pretty remarkable.
It is. Well, we're running out of time, Ian. What's the best place for people to find out more about you guys and all the different things you do?
Oh, yeah. Please go to IBHS.org for the information about all the research programs we get. Follow us on social, too. All the different channels you can find and see all the great images that come from the test work we do. And we mentioned the Fortified program. So that's Fortified.org, and then Wildfire Prepared, which is wildfire-prepared.org. But just.org will take you there to see all the great science that we do. And please check it out and give a look. Like we've talked about, if you're ready to make some changes to your home, that first step is always the best one.
No question. Thanks for coming on today, brother. I'm Eric G. You got to check these guys out. You've been listening to Around the House. Hey, it's Eric G. with Around the House. Are you looking to grow your business? Need a spokesperson for your company? Maybe an MC for an upcoming trade show? Or maybe you want to up your game and shoot some promotional videos? My team of experts would love to chat with you. Head to AroundTheHouseOnline.com and fill out the Contact Us form, and we'll set something up. Thanks for listening to Around the House.